I never thought I'd see the day when the president of my homeowners association would try to block an ambulance from reaching my house, but that's exactly what happened on one of the scariest nights of my life. And, trust me, it was a night I will never forget. Not just because of the fear I felt for my son, but because of the way karma came crashing down on the so-called queen of the cul-de-sac in the most public, humiliating way possible. To understand why this was such a big deal, you need to know the type of person my HOA president, let's just call her Karen, really was. Karen wasn't just strict about the rules. No, that would have been almost tolerable. She lived for power. She thrived on making other people feel small, like she was the judge, jury, and executioner of our neighborhood. She had the kind of smug smile that made your skin crawl, the kind of voice that could make something as simple as a "good morning" sound like a command. Every interaction with her was about control, about showing she was the boss, and everyone hated it. She would hand out fines for the most ridiculous things. If your grass grew even an inch too long before you got the mower out, she'd be on your doorstep with a notice. If your garbage bins weren't pulled in the second the truck drove away, she'd take pictures and slap you with a penalty. She once fined my neighbor because their teenage daughter had parked her car with two wheels barely touching the sidewalk. And heaven forbid anyone decorate their house for a holiday without her personal approval. Christmas lights, too bright. Halloween decorations, too tacky. Independence Day flags, against the uniform appearance guidelines. It was like she got her joy from stripping everyone else of theirs. Now, I tried to keep my head down most of the time. I work long hours, and between that and raising my son, the last thing I needed was a war with the neighborhood tyrant. My boy, Adam, was 8 at the time. Bright, funny, with an energy that could light up a room. He loved drawing superheroes, climbing trees, and riding his bike way too fast down our street. He was my world, and every sacrifice I made was for him. We'd had some health scares with him when he was younger. He had asthma, and though it was mostly under control, every parent of a kid with breathing issues knows the constant fear that lingers in the back of your mind. And then came that night. It was a Tuesday evening, nothing special. I was in the kitchen trying to get dinner ready while Adam sat in the living room drawing one of his superhero comics. At first, I thought the coughs I heard were just the usual seasonal stuff. But then I heard a sharp wheeze, followed by a panicked cry. I dropped the pen I was holding and rushed to him. His face was pale, his chest was heaving, and he was clutching his throat with wide, terrified eyes. "Adam, baby, breathe, just breathe," I begged, trying to keep my voice calm even though my hands were already shaking. I grabbed his inhaler, but it wasn't working. His breaths were shallow, his body trembling, and the dread that slammed into me was indescribable. My heart pounded in my ears as I dialed 911, trying to stay coherent while telling the dispatcher that my son couldn't breathe. "Help is on the way, ma'am. Stay calm. Keep him sitting upright," the voice told me. Those few minutes waiting for the ambulance felt like hours. I held Adam in my arms, whispering to him, stroking his hair, promising him that help was coming. His little hand gripped mine with a strength that broke me. When I finally heard the faint wail of sirens in the distance, I almost collapsed with relief. But that relief turned into rage and horror in seconds. Because when the flashing lights reached our street, I heard shouting. Not from the paramedics, but from Karen. I opened the door and saw her, standing smack in the middle of the road, arms folded, blocking the ambulance as it tried to back toward my driveway. "You can't park here," she screeched, her voice sharp and shrill. "This is a private neighborhood. HOA rules clearly state—" The paramedic in the passenger seat leaned out, furious. "Ma'am, this is an emergency. Move out of the way." But she didn't budge. She planted her feet like she owned the asphalt under them. "You'll have to find another spot. You're not damaging our community landscaping with those wheels." My son was suffocating in my arms, and this woman was arguing about landscaping. My blood boiled so hot I could barely see straight. I screamed from the doorway, "Karen, my son is dying. Get out of the way." She shot me the most condescending glare, like I was inconveniencing her. "If you'd kept your grass trimmed properly last week, maybe I'd consider bending the rules. But rules are rules. The sheer audacity nearly made me drop Adam. The paramedics tried again, honking, demanding she move. But Karen was relentless. She actually held her hand up like she was stopping traffic, insisting they go around to the back entrance, which would have added minutes my son didn't have. And that's when headlights appeared behind her. A big, commanding fire truck rolled in, sirens blazing, and a deep voice boomed through the night. "Move! Now!" Karen froze. Slowly she turned and the color drained from her face. Because stepping out of that truck, helmet tucked under his arm, was my brother, the fire chief. I have never been so grateful in my life to see him. His eyes met mine, and then flicked to Adam, who was barely conscious now. His jaw tightened. He didn't waste a second. "Officer, detain her. She's obstructing emergency services," he barked to one of his crew. Karen gasped. You can't do that. I'm the HOA president." My brother glared at her with a fury that could melt steel. "And I'm the fire chief. Right now, you're interfering with a medical emergency. That's a criminal offense." The look on her face was priceless. All the arrogance, all the smug superiority, it shattered in an instant. As she sputtered and tried to argue, 2 officers who had arrived as backup grabbed her by the arms and pulled her aside. The ambulance rushed past, screeching into my driveway, and within seconds, the EMTs were inside, working on Adam. I can't even describe the mix of emotions I felt in those moments. Terror for my son, relief that help had finally reached him, and a deep, burning satisfaction watching Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA, dragged away in handcuffs, shrieking about how this was all a misunderstanding. Adam was rushed to the hospital, and thank God, after a tense night, he stabilized. He had suffered a severe asthma attack, worse than any before, but he pulled through. I held his hand the entire night, vowing never to let anything, or anyone, stand in the way of his safety again. As for Karen? Oh, karma didn't just stop at her arrest. Word of what she'd done spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Everyone had witnessed it. Parents, kids, neighbors who had been silently suffering under her tyranny. They all saw the moment she chose her petty rules over the life of a child. Her reputation was destroyed overnight. The HOA board held an emergency meeting the next week. For once, the votes were unanimous. Karen was stripped of her presidency and banned from ever holding a leadership role again. She also faced legal consequences for obstruction, and while she tried to weasel her way out with excuses, nothing could erase the image of her screaming at an ambulance while a child fought for his life. And me? I can't lie. There was a deep, satisfying peace in watching her empire crumble. She had built her entire identity on controlling others, on making people feel powerless. And, in the end, she was the one powerless, humiliated, and cast aside by the very community she claimed to protect. Sometimes justice doesn't come in subtle ways. Sometimes it comes with sirens blaring, a fire chief standing tall, and the entire neighborhood watching as karma takes center stage. So, if you've ever dealt with an HOA nightmare, know this. Bullies eventually trip over their own arrogance, and when they do, the fall is spectacular.